Let's talk about something you use literally every single day but probably never really think about, your Windows user profile. It's kind of the secret sauce, the magic that makes your computer actually feel like your computer.
I mean, think about it. You log into a Windows machine and poof, there's your background, your icons are right where you left them, your browser knows your passwords, all your documents are there. How in the world does the computer pull that off, especially just for you?
Well, it all comes down to this thing called your user profile. The best way to think of it is like a personal blueprint. Every time you log on, Windows grabs that blueprint and builds your custom little world from scratch. It's the reason a computer that 100 people use can still feel like it's yours and yours alone.
Okay, so what's actually in this digital blueprint? What's it made of? Let's get into it and break down the DNA of a user profile.
At its most basic, a user profile is just a collection of settings and data. The very first time you ever sign into a machine, Windows creates one for you by copying a default template. From that moment on, every little change you make, every tweak, every file you save, it all gets stored right there.
So a profile really has four key ingredients. First, you've got your user settings. This is all the fun stuff, your wallpaper, your taskbar layout. Then there's the really technical core, the user registry. This is a file called ntuser.dat, and it's basically the brain of your profile, storing thousands of settings. Third is application data, which is where your apps keep their own settings. And finally, of course, your user data. That's all your stuff, your documents, pictures, music, you name it.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Not all profiles are created equal. Depending on what you're doing, a profile can have one of four very distinct personalities. Let's meet the family.
First up, you've got the two most common types. The local profile is what I'd call the homebody. It lives on one computer, and that's it. Your settings don't follow you around. Then you have the roaming profile, the world traveler. This one's stored on a central server, so your desktop, your settings, everything follows you to any computer you log into on that network. The only catch? If that profile gets huge, your sign-in can slow way down.
Then there are these two special cases. The mandatory profile is like a strict librarian. It's a read-only profile where any changes you make just get wiped away when you log out. It's perfect for places like a public library or a classroom. On the other hand, the temporary profile is the uninvited guest. You see this when Windows, for whatever reason, fails to load your actual profile. It also won't save your changes, but unlike the mandatory one, seeing this is a big red flag that something's wrong.
So how do you make one of these strict librarian profiles? You might think it's some super complicated process, but nope, it's unbelievably simple. An admin just takes a regular roaming profile and renames that core registry file from ntuser.dat to ntuser.man. That's it. That one little change from dot to man, as in mandatory, is all it takes to lock it down completely.
And that slow login problem I mentioned with roaming profiles? Well, that brings us to a huge challenge in the enterprise world, profile bloat. When these things get massive, they cause all sorts of headaches. So, how do you fix it?
I want you to just imagine this for a second. A 50 gigabyte roaming profile. 50 gigs. Every single time a user logs in, their computer has to try and pull all of that data across the network. It's an absolute nightmare. Logons take forever, people get frustrated. There has to be a better way, right?
Of course there is. There are three main ways to put these bloated profiles on a diet. You can set quotas to put a hard cap on the size, or use group policy to enforce limits across the board. But the real heavy hitter, the most powerful tool in the toolbox, is something called Folder Redirection.
Folder Redirection is a total game changer. The idea is brilliant. It separates your big, bulky data folders, like your documents, your desktop, your pictures, from the actual profile. The profile itself stays tiny and nimble with just your settings, while all your heavy data lives safely on a network share. This idea of separating settings from data is the key to everything.
And that fundamental idea, separating your settings from your data, is exactly what powers the entire modern approach to profiles. Let's see how the cloud has completely changed the game.
The big shift today is really just making that separation official. Instead of having one giant clunky profile that tries to do everything, the cloud gives us specialized services for each of those two core components, one for your settings and a completely different one for your data.
So, on one side of the coin, you have Enterprise State Roaming, or ESR. Think of this as the service that syncs all your core settings, your Windows theme, your saved passwords, your language preferences. And on the other side, you've got OneDrive. Its job is simple: sync your files. Together, they give you that consistent, seamless experience, no matter what machine you're on.
So let's recap. ESC is handling your Windows and modern app settings. OneDrive has your user files covered. But wait, what about the settings for all those classic desktop applications? See, that's a bit of a gap. In the old on-premise world, a tool called UEV used to take care of this, and it's a really important piece to keep in mind when you're thinking about the modern cloud model.
Now, if you're a business looking at ESR, there are a few critical things you absolutely have to know. First, the security is top-notch. All your data is encrypted, both on its way to the cloud and while it's sitting there. For compliance, the data always stays in your geographic region, so it doesn't just replicate all over the world. But, and this is a big one, there's a data retention policy. If settings aren't accessed for a year, they can be permanently deleted. And let me be crystal clear, once that data is gone, it's gone. There's no getting it back.
So we've gone on this journey from a simple folder on a single PC all the way to a decentralized identity that's spread across the cloud, with settings here and data over there. It really leaves us with one last big question. As our digital selves become more and more fluid, what does a user profile even mean anymore?